Hi everyone! So about 5 years ago now, my best friend and I, Lily, went on this big Europe trip all the way from Australia to Europe for about 6.5 weeks. We went to all different kinds of places. We started off in Manchester to see my auntie, we went to Paris, then we did like a big top deck group tour through Europe, which was about 3 weeks, and we went through all these different European countries. If you want to see anything about that trip, then I've got a video on it. It's linked above. Otherwise, just Google them. And so we did that, and then went to Barcelona and London on our own. So this was like our first big trip outside of Australia. Like, I'd been to Bali before and maybe somewhere else, but that was with parents. So it was like our first sort of trip on our own. So I was only 20 and I literally planned this trip to the minute. It was so planned and so organized and so extravagant, and as we spent so much money, I spent about 12 grand in total, including flights, tours, spending money, and it was just ridiculous. And I look back now and cringe at some of the things we did because we were just so over the top with everything, and I've learnt over the past 5 years that you really don't have to do those things and spend all that money in order to travel or in order to travel often. I'm just going to put a disclaimer here and say that, you know, if you do these things or if you travel this way or you like doing these things, then there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what makes you happy, then you go ahead and do it. I'm not saying it's the wrong way to travel. I'm just saying that I've looked back on those experiences and I've learned from those experiences, and nowadays I enjoy travel a lot more the way I travel now. A lot more laid back and a lot cheaper, and I wouldn't want to travel like I did back then at all anymore. First thing is, you don't need to eat out for every single meal. So when we were in Europe all those many moons ago, we would literally eat out for every single meal, and I don't know how we didn't put on so much weight. That's why we spent so much money, and it's unhealthy, and I mean, you're just eating out for the sake of eating out. My tip is to obviously buy your own food and make it. So make sure you have an apartment or an Airbnb where you have a kitchen and you can do that. We didn't really book anything like that when we were traveling just on our own. That's when Airbnb was only just coming out, so we didn't really know. We didn't even book apartments. We just booked hotels. Like, we just had no idea. So make sure you book something that's got a kitchen, so at least you've got the option. Or even just eat out once a day and maybe just spend like a small amount on lunch or dinner. You know, just do one or the other maybe. Because in the end, we would just go to restaurants that were nearby because we got so hungry, and they weren't really proper, like, nice, authentic sort of restaurants. They were a bit touristy, so there's even that as well. The second thing is, you don't have to take photos of absolutely everything. You're not there to take photos. I feel like this probably gotten worse in the past few years, ever since Instagram's come about. I know I'm probably guilty for saying stuff like, let's go there to take a cool photo, or let's take some cool photos, or it's really cool for a photo. Yes, take photos of things that you really love the look of, or be creative and get in the photo and, you know, do things like that. But don't let that like consume your whole holiday. You know, I like to just go to places now and just take a photo, be really creative, spend some time on it, and then sit back and take in the moment and just really spend it there. Or, you know, other way around, take in the moment first and then take photos, or to have the camera out a little bit during the day and then decide when it's time to put the camera away and be a lot more present. When me and Lily were in Europe, we literally would just take photos and on to the next thing, take a photo, next thing, take a photo, next. We didn't even like stop and actually look at what we were looking at sometimes. We just took photos. And we just took photos of everything. Third thing is, you don't have to see absolutely everything. You don't have to have this like full-on strict plan making sure you see absolutely every attraction in the city, because it will still be there. And if you really enjoy traveling, you'll hopefully go back to those places and see the things that you missed. You know, just pick out a few things that actually genuinely really interest you. Just think, why am I going to this city? Like, what am I going for? Am I going for food? Am I going for this attraction? Am I going for that? You know, are you just going to these cities because everyone else goes there, or that's just the place to go? Just really think about what you really want to see in these places and why you want to be there. You know, you might go somewhere, all I want to do is eat and relax. Then just do that. Don't go and push yourself to go to see a church or whatever just because it's there and all you should go. And like, yeah, so don't stick to like a rigid schedule. I literally had our holiday planned to the minute, not even joking, to the hour. In Paris, there's so many different things to do, and I literally wrote down a list of all the things we wanted to do, all the things that you could possibly see in Paris pretty much. And then I grouped them in wherever they were, so that we literally had a walking tour in every single day. And it was like, by the hour, we'd go here, and then we'd go here, and then go here. And I always said, you know, we don't have to follow this. This is just like, this is where the things are, and we'll go to them, you know, this order, we can do that. And I was like, you know, we don't have to, we don't want to. But we pretty much did. And the bad thing about that was, all I could think about when we were at somewhere is where we were going to go next and what was the next stop, and just was never present, and I was never in the moment because it was so planned. We saw lots of things that we probably really didn't really give too much crap about. We just went and saw them because they were there to be seen, like, and because everyone else went to them. Fourth point is you don't have to buy all the souvenirs in the whole world. You don't have to buy all the clothes. You don't have to buy everything. I feel like sometimes people or me or whatever, you just buy souvenirs for the sake of buying a souvenir. In the end, it was like I was just buying stuff for the sake of buying stuff. Like if I went to country and I didn't really find any little trinkets or something that I like the look of, I just bought something with the name of the country on because I was like, I have to buy something in every country. And then in my head I was like, you know, when I buy a house or move into a house, I'm going to have it all on display and be like, this is where I went, and this is where I went here. And really that's not going to happen. Because you know what? All that stuff is just sitting in a box back home in Australia in a cupboard. And along with that, point number 5, you don't have to spend all your money. Just because you've saved up a certain amount or budgeted a certain amount doesn't mean you have to spend it all. Like people always say, you know, why would you want to go back home with money? The whole point is to spend it all. But I feel like there's a point in spending it wisely and budgeting yourself and actually spending on stuff you really want compared to just spending it because it's there. And the thing is as well, we probably could have gone for longer if we were a bit more on the budget side. I think I spent 6 to 7 grand Australian dollars in 6 or so weeks. And that's $1,000 a week. That's $142 a day. Who spends that much? That's because we were buying so much stuff as well. Like nowadays when I go traveling, I rarely buy anything. That's so much money. Like we could have used $50 a day probably, or maybe a little bit more than that, or depending on where we are. So it's just not going overboard. That's not even including hotels or accommodation. That's just spending money. Like all the hotels were already paid for before that. The next point is you don't have to sort of know everything about everything when you're going to a new destination. So I sort of learnt this, I guess, when I went to Taiwan on my own. I realized that not everything is actually on the internet. You can't actually find certain things out. You actually have to go to that country and speak to people and find out when you get there. You don't have to know everything about how to get from A to B and where to stay and what to eat. You can always research that stuff there, and you know, do as much research as you can and note it all down, but don't rely on it too much. I think when you get there, be very flexible and be very open. You know, I think there's that pressure to sort of be real travel smart and be like a true traveler and sort of know everything about everywhere and anything, and no, it's not the case. I think we need to learn along the way. That's the whole point of going to a new country, is learning all about it. You don't have to do an organised tour. I very much would still do a tour, but I always find it's cheaper to do it on my own, either if it's with a friend or not, just like on our own, not through a tour. We obviously booked a tour when we went to Europe because it was the first time outside of Australia pretty much, and it was an amazing experience. Like I would never say don't do it, but it's also really great to do things on your own. It costs less and you have a lot more flexibility and you can just do what you want, and you'll definitely meet people as well along the way that are doing the exact same thing. With the Top Deck tour, because it was 3 weeks and it was like within 10 different countries, we were staying in places for 2 nights, maybe even 1 night, so it was very strict with the planning. It was all very organised. You had obviously times where you had free time, but it was like, you know, you have free time from this time to this time and then that's it. Like half the time you'd have to go to restaurants that are already like pre-organised. And the last thing is you don't need to bring the biggest suitcase in the whole world and bring your whole wardrobe. This is what we did, and this is the thing that I laugh at the most about me and Lily, is that we took the biggest suitcase you could take. You know those giant ones, like the ones about this big and this wide? Like that's what we took on a 6-week trip. Really, you should only be taking a week's worth of clothes and washing them often, which was actually hard for us because we were on the tour, and I think once they helped us out and took us all to a washing machine facility, but because we were moving so quickly, it would have been really hard to wash our stuff because we would have to definitely put it in dryers, which wrecks your clothes, so I hate doing that. And we'd have to, you know, use up our time sitting in a laundromat a few hours, even though we were very much on the move. So we were a bit restricted with that when it came to the tour. But then when we were on our own, we stayed in hotels. So it would have cost a lot of money to get the hotel to wash our stuff. So we were sort of stuck because we couldn't do it there either. If we'd stayed in hostels or an Airbnb, it would have been really easy, but we just didn't know that back then. So don't make that mistake. Stay somewhere where you can wash your clothes, or, you know, research finding somewhere nearby that you can go to. But I always prefer it in your own house so that you can just hang up the stuff and you don't have to worry about waiting for it and watching the stuff. And then we ended up buying so many souvenirs and so many clothes, so we had to buy a small carry-on suitcase while we were there to carry all our stuff because our big suitcases didn't fit it. How much stuff do you need? So remember, yeah, when we left London, we were going on the tube and everything, in the tube stations with these massive suitcases. And a lot of tube stations don't have a lift, so we'd have to lug them down the stairs, and then they were just so heavy. It's just so cringy. So yeah, just don't take too much stuff because you honestly don't need it. Even when I pack light, I still have stuff in my suitcase that I don't end up wearing. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it's helped you, and I hope you'll learn from my mistakes. It'll stop you from taking a ginormous suitcase around Europe with you. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my other videos about travel, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!